which is bringing 1,600 acres under irrigation cover. Madam Speaker, in Essex Valley, we've laid all the pipes, we've drilled all the wells, we've finished the rehabilitation of the majority of 27 kilometers of farm road has been done under the Essex Valley project. All we're waiting now is the completion of the procurement for the pumps. In SPAD, we finished all of that, and the pumps are en route. Madam Speaker, let me thank the United Kingdom government for the grant that they provided, which is helping us in this regard. There are other projects on the horizon. Hindstown, Yallas, Lucky Hill Pen, Lennox Lower Leighton in Portland. All of this, Madam Speaker, we plan to spend over the next few years $713 million to bring irrigation to 4,000 hectares to help over 4,000 farmers and to increase our production levels by 50%. Madam Speaker, we continue to focus on drought mitigation. And last year we spent over $175 million in relation to the drought. This year we are continuing that work. We plan to continue to establish retention ponds in highly productive zones to ensure that when the rain does come, we're making the most of it. Additionally, Madam Speaker, I'm pleased to announce today that we will be starting a new black tank irrigation program where we will be distributing 2,500 irrigation kits over the next year. What we have found, Madam Speaker, is that our farmers who have the storage capacity and the drip hoses, they do better. They're better able to withstand the drought. And clearly, we will be using a mixed modality to distribute these tanks and irrigation kits, including elected representatives, RADA, JACRA, and various farmer-based organizations. Madam Speaker, I wanted to tell you about our public gardens, but I will skip that. Suffice to say, there are big plans for our Bath Botanical Gardens. $18 million is going to be spent through the TPDCO and JSIF, along with the Ministry of Agriculture, to really renovate the Bath Botanical Gardens. Madam Speaker, I cannot skip Holland Bamboo, iconic destination. Last year we planted 5,050 bamboo in that scenic avenue. The drought has been difficult, but we've spoken to the permanent secretary, and we will be looking to treat with an irrigation system for that Holland bamboo. And we know the Member of Parliament, along with the Minister of Finance, along with the Prime Minister, under the Spark program, will treat with the road to make the Holland bamboo experience even better. Finally, Madam Speaker, on the public gardens, we are going to establish a new public garden. Madam Speaker, our vision, we need a public garden in each parish. Yes. We need a public botanical garden in each parish. We can partner and call it a wellness garden. We are going to start by establishing one in Montego in South St. James, Homer Davis. We're going to establish a new botanical gardens in land that we have in Montpellier. Madam Speaker, I could boast about our expansion in exports, but I'm going to go quickly. Suffice to say that we raised more money, we earned more money this year than last year from our agricultural exports. Some of you may not know, but the value, the earnings from the exportation of yam moved from 37 million United States dollars in 2022 to yam earning 50.4 million United States dollars through exportation in 2023. While yellow yam is still the major contributor, we're seeing increases in demand for Lucy, Negro, sweet yam, and other areas. Madam Speaker, the other area that we've seen significant growth in export is in our sauces. In the first 9 months of 2023, we saw a 20% increase in earnings from sauces exports, moving from US $27 million to US $33 million in earnings. This augurs well for our spices sector, especially as we seek to secure the agricultural value chain. More of our agro-processors are looking to expand their agricultural output. Madam Speaker, while the brands are too many to call, allow me to recognize the work of Picker Pepper, Walker's Wood, Spur Tree Spices, Scotch Boys, and of course, Grace Kennedy. Madam Speaker, we have a program for our spices sector. And we want to thank the United States Department of Agriculture, who are helping us with a US $22 million program to revitalize our spices sector over the next 5 years. This year, Madam Speaker, we will set up 6 new ginger nurseries. We will do 21 acres of ginger infield planting. We will engage the public and private sector nurseries to produce 100,000 pimento seedlings. Madam Speaker, we're bringing back ginger in a real way, turmeric in a real way, pimento in a real way. Madam Speaker, I won't go through all the traditional crops, and the full presentation is there, but I do want to get to fisheries and mining. But just to say for our coffee farmers, that we're going to start this year a $3.5 billion revitalization and expansion program. We're going to focus on farmer and agro-processors capacity. We're going to focus on planting material production. We're going to focus on infrastructure support. And we're going to focus on providing direct input support to over 15,000 farmers and their families. Importantly, Madam Speaker, we know that we have the best coffee in the world. Yes. But when it is on the international market, you have to be able to distinguish it. We are going to be implementing this year blockchain technology to provide digital traceability from our coffee farms to our finished Blue Mountain coffee product. What it means in a nutshell is that somebody will be able to pick up a bag of Blue Mountain coffee in Japan, scan the QR code, and know the farmer and the farm that it came from in the hills of East Rural St. Andrews. Madam Speaker, we saw an increase in cocoa production. But the area I want to focus on in relation to cocoa is what we're seeing happening on the local market. Local sales figure for our cocoa last year increased by 76%. What it means is that our local chocolatiers are the ones that are buying our cocoa and adding value to our cocoa. We have the best cocoa in the world. One of the few fine flavor designated cocoas. And some people say, do we have the best cocoa in the world? Well, let me tell you. One of our Jamaican chocolatiers, Pure Chocolate, was selected among the top 50 in the 2023 edition of the Cocoa Excellence Award. When they went to the award in February of this year, Pure Chocolate won gold. This is a new paradigm for our cocoa industry. Madam Speaker, we're doing a lot of work around coconut, significant work, and I want to commend Dr. Wayne Myrie and the team who have reduced the spread of lethal yellowing by 70%. That is what was holding back our coconut sector. We've worked with CARDI, ITC, Coconut Industry Board, Scientific Research Council, Alligator Head Foundation, RADA, NACALVA, and we've formed what we call Alliances for Action in Coconut. And we've done significant distribution over the past year. This year, we're going to be working with 10 agro-processors to support the development of agribusiness solutions and continue research on climate-resistant varieties. Additionally, Madam Speaker, the private sector is stepping up and answering the call in coconut. And I'm happy to indicate that the SCG has advised me that they're entering into a lease for 220 acres of former sugar land to be put into coconut production. Madam Speaker, bananas are still doing well, and we're coming back in relation to bananas. And where we've seen significant increase is in our planting sector. And we've launched a planting pilot project where we provided $20 million to establish 20 hectares of planting, and that is going well, Madam Speaker. But, Madam Speaker, let me speak about some of the challenges that we face. One of the main barriers for entry and expansion into agriculture is the cost of input supplies. From seeds to fertilizer to chemicals to irrigation equipment, farmers have been complaining about the prices. What we appreciate and we notice is that when the world prices go up, there is an increase on our local market. But when the prices go down, we have not seen the same levels of decrease. Madam Speaker, we've started to reach out to our input suppliers because this is critical to drive agriculture. And I want us to commend Newport Fersan, who has reduced their fertilizer prices by up to 13% on all granular fertilizer. And I want to urge the retailers to pass on the savings. Madam Speaker, as we drive climate resilience, the team and I met with Isratech. And I'm pleased to announce that Isratech will be making the following reductions. 10% discount on all drip hoses and products manufactured under the Jamaica Drip Division. An additional 5% on all drip irrigation-related accessories. Additionally, if you operate in our agri-parks, you are going to get a 25% discount on irrigation equipment supplied by Isratech. There's another thing that Isratech agreed to. They agreed that they will provide free technical irrigation designs for any farmer that is utilizing their irrigation system. And I know Benji is here from Isratech. Madam Speaker, labor is still a fundamental challenge to our agricultural sector, and the shortage of labor is now approaching chronic proportions. This year, we plan to expand our RADA equipment support to farmers. Already, we've put into operation 6 tractors, bringing the fleet to 15 tractors and 14 backhoes. This year, we plan to supply 2 additional tractors at a cost of $30 million. We are also going to embark on a new tractor lease and land preparation program to provide greater access to privately owned tractors across the country. We're even going further than that, members. We will be supporting the procurement of walk-behind tractors and other easily operated machines to help small farmers on difficult terrain. So farmers will be able to lease these machines for a designated period from RADA at a reduced rate. We're also going to be introducing drones for spraying, and we're going to be partnering with private operators of drones to provide that service at a subsidy for our farmers. We are also, Madam Speaker, moving to restructure RADA. But I could not give this presentation without speaking about what we're doing for our youth, women, and persons with disability. Madam Speaker, the engagement of women and youth in agriculture is tantamount to its success or failure. This year, we will continue our focus on creating greater opportunities for our youth to get involved in agricultural pursuits and to provide tangible support to motivate their achievements. To this end, members, we're embarking on a comprehensive agricultural development program for youth, women, and persons with disabilities called Project Feed, which is our drive to empower our women and youth and our persons with disabilities so that we can feed our nation and build our economy. Members, under Project Feed, appreciating the challenge with access to land, we are reserving 25% of all new agri-park lands to be assigned to women, youth, and persons with disabilities. Members, under Project Feed, we will be providing $390 million That is $390 million for youth farmers. We are going to be setting up a special portal on the RADA where the youth can apply directly for their benefit, or they can go through their elected representative subject to verification. Under Project Feed, we're partnering with the Heart Trust NTA to provide youth and women who graduate and are certified in greenhouse production with a greenhouse or a shade house free of cost. We're also going to provide them with input support for their first crop. And Madam Speaker, if they don't have the land, we will try to find the land for them in one of our agri-parks. Under Project Feed, Madam Speaker, we're introducing an agricultural scholarship program to provide support for our young people, especially those who have excelled in agriculture and related fields in high school. We need geneticists, we need agricultural engineers, we need precision agricultural specialists, we need soil scientists, and as such, we're going to be working with the private sector to make $100 million available for agricultural scholarships for those who want to pursue careers in agriculture. This will be managed through the 4-H Club. Under Project Feed, Madam Speaker, we're going to partner with the Heart Trust, and we're going to provide island-wide tractor operations and maintenance training to any youth who wants to do it free of cost. We are looking to have our new generation of tractor operators. Under Project Feed, we're starting a new small rooming and training program through the Jamaica 4-H, where youth and women will be trained, and at the end of the training, they will be granted animals to start their agricultural enterprise. One of the components that I'm happiest about under Project Feed, Madam Speaker, is that we're going to be starting a mentorship program. A lot of you get involved with agriculture, but they need guidance. And as such, we're going to be partnering our youth farmers with mentors, old farmers, so that they get an in-depth understanding of agriculture, business, leadership, and this will be done through the 4-H Club. Under Project Feed, we'll be partnering with the Jamaican Network of Rural Women to develop cottage industries around goat milk, cheese, yogurt, soap, jams, jellies, pickles, and syrups. Madam Speaker, it is youth who will shape the future of agriculture. And as my friend Angus reminded me this morning, no farmer, no future. This government is ensuring that our youth, our women, our persons with disabilities are truly able to harvest hope, mine possibilities, and create a better future. Madam Speaker, we're introducing through the 4-H Club an Adopt a School Garden program. School gardens are so critical for agricultural enterprise. And as such, we'll put out more information about this, but I want to say to the private sector, work with us around our Adopt a School Garden program. Let me turn to our fisheries sector, Madam Speaker. And I won't speak about the increases, but just to tell you, we're seeing increases in our fisheries sector. But importantly, last year, Madam Speaker, our conch became the first queen for conch fishery in the world to be certified as sustainable under the Marine Stewardship Council. Madam Speaker, what this means is that our conch is considered best in the world. And, you know, we have to celebrate this, Madam Speaker, because 3 years ago, about 5 years ago, we shut down our conch industry. And then 3 years ago, when I was last Minister of Agriculture, we reopened our conch industry. And we said we would do it differently. We would do it sustainably so that it would never be shut down again. Madam Speaker, we can now say that we are the most sustainable conch industry in the entire world. Madam Speaker, as I watch the time, I'm going to go to just the new initiatives. We are moving to revitalize the export of ornamental fish. We are starting an ornamental fish farming project, Madam Speaker. The ornamental fish industry worldwide is about $5.8 billion. And as such, our ornamental fish farming project will provide support to groups of ornamental fish farmers in terms of capacity building, rehabilitation of infrastructure, retooling and training in marketing, business administration, and technical capacity development. Under the project, Madam Speaker, we're going to be building an export clearinghouse facility at the Aquaculture Division in Twickenham Park that will facilitate the exportation of ornamental fish that is produced by our ornamental fish farmers. As I said earlier, Madam Speaker, we also will be distributing some ornamental fish to women, youth, at-risk youth, and inner-city communities. This program is $16 million as we seek to harvest hope. Madam Speaker, the government of Japan has worked with us, and they will be providing for the fisheries sector this year a research vessel valued at Jamaican $1 billion. This will allow us to conduct abundance surveys and distribution surveys and really understand our marine environment and the impact of climate change. This is critical, Madam Speaker, and I really want to thank the government of Japan and the people of Japan for their support in that regard. Madam Speaker, our strategic flagship conservation program is the development and management of our fish sanctuaries across Jamaica. Since 2010, supported by a cabinet decision, we've established a network of 18 fish sanctuaries. Madam Speaker, what we've recognized is that our fish sanctuaries work, and they're run by an amazing NGO network that have truly committed themselves to rescuing our marine ecosystem. Since inception, Madam Speaker, there was no budgetary allocation for our fish sanctuaries. However, Madam Speaker, we lobbied the Ministry of Finance and the Minister of Finance, and I'm pleased to announce that for the first time in our history, a budgetary allocation of $60 million have been provided for our fish sanctuary network. This is a massive step in the right direction, Madam Speaker, and I will be speaking with Minister Samudo under the Ministry of Economic Growth and Climate Change to see if we can get some additional funds to help all our fish sanctuaries. Madam Speaker, the fish sanctuaries work. We've seen a doubling of biomass within the fish space since the introduction of our fish sanctuaries. And that is why I'm pleased to announce today that we are forming 2 new fish sanctuaries in Grange Pen, St. James, and in Lucy, Hanover. In fact, the sanctuaries have already been gazetted, and they encompass a total of about 468 hectares of our sea space, Madam Speaker. And I want to thank the Aracabessa Foundation for helping us making this a reality. Madam Speaker, we are continuing our fisheries incentive program. And this year we have allocated $42 million for our fisheries production incentive program. We'll be doing business development grants for youth and women. We'll be doing safety gear for fishers. We'll be doing outboard motor support. But members, this year we'll be introducing a new initiative where at least 20 youth who have participated in National Fisheries Authority training programs will be granted a boat and an engine free of cost. We are moving to create the next generation of fishers. We're also working with the private sector on a fisheries loan program, and we're also working on a beach rehabilitation program, Madam Speaker, which we will earmark $20 million for that. Madam Speaker, let me close with the mining sector. I won't say much about Alpat. We've said a lot, suffice to say, Minister Witter and I were there last week touring. Madam Speaker, we have had many meetings with our partners, Concord, who are the operators of Discovery Bauxite. They have had a challenge in 2023, but they have assured us that they are committed with treaty with the outstanding matters over the next 6 months. and we will continue to monitor the situation. Madam Speaker, we continue to pay keen attention to land rehabilitation and our bauxite community development program and our bauxite land titling program, Madam Speaker. But there are 3 new initiatives that I want to bring to this Parliament. Madam Speaker, this year we will be embarking on what we call Operation Pipewater, providing potable and irrigation water for productivity and empowerment in bauxite mining communities. Madam Speaker, a number of our bauxite communities, unfortunately, still don't have access to water. But a number of our bauxite companies dug wells. We're going to fix that, Madam Speaker. We're going to partner with the JBI and the JBM, the NIC and RADA, and the NWC, and we're going to rehabilitate, resuscitate those wells. We're going to run irrigation systems in those communities. We're seeking, Madam Speaker, to impact the lives of 125,000 residents, 800 businesses, 3,000 hectares of land over the next 10 years. This is how we mine possibilities. Madam Speaker, we're going to be spending $100 million on greenhouse expansion. We're introducing a new Manchester citrus revitalization project. I don't have to tell you how hard it is to get a lime or an orange now. So we're going to be spending over $7 million, partnering with the Jamaica Citrus Growers Association to start a project to replant citrus in Manchester. Another new program, Madam Speaker. A lot of bauxite land stands idle, not doing anything, and the farmers want them. We are starting a bauxite land lease program this year to give land to farmers on concessionary terms so that they can maximize their output. Madam Speaker, I won't go into limestone. I won't go into... But let me close with these 2. Madam Speaker, agriculture still requires significant investments, and I'm back to agriculture for a little bit. We have to ensure that we can get the capital to the agricultural entrepreneurs. And the reality is that our financial sector is failing us. Our farmers are still unable to access capital at competitive rates to drive their agricultural enterprise. This is why, Madam Speaker, we want to work with the Ministry of Finance to establish an agricultural development fund to see how we can use that to drive investment in agriculture. If our farmers get the capital, they will do the work. Madam Speaker, a lot was said about the GCT on imported raw foods, but the Ministry of Finance has treated with that. And he has spoken about us bringing our policies in line with the WTOs and the fact that we have put in place a committee that will meet. And clearly we will put some of our issues on the table as we seek to advocate other areas that we think removal of GCT can help. But, Madam Speaker, what we have to do is to ensure that when we go out to shop, that we're supporting our farmers and our officials. So this year, Madam Speaker, we plan to launch our Say Yes to Fresh campaign, where we're going to again be promoting choosing Jamaican farmers and Jamaican products when you go out to shop. Madam Speaker, as we prepare for Dembi, the JS is an important organization, having been formed over 120 years ago. For the last 3 years, the JS have not been able to host an annual general meeting or to have an election. We have met with the team from the JS, and I have said to them that this year must be the year that they host their annual general meeting because we need a strong JS. And it would be extremely challenging to continue to support an organization that cannot stage the most basic democratic tradition. Madam Speaker, since the opposition leader left the House without an opposition spokesperson on agriculture, the opposition leader himself was forced, painstakingly so, to dedicate a section of his speech to the sector. Having reviewed his suggestions, it is clear that the leader of the opposition agrees with the direction of the ministry and agrees with the direction of the government. Every suggestion he made is something we're already doing. The opposition leader says increase youth training. Last year we offered 169,000 training opportunities for our youth. The opposition leader says expand and repair farm roads. Last year we did 70. The opposition leader said partner with CASE and UE to boost research. We have provided $60 million to CASE. We are partnering with UE Sadiqa for a gluten-free flour. We are partnering with NCU for dairy research. The opposition leader said upgrade CASE to a university. I announced that in August 2023. This is not new. This is not new. So what is clear is that the opposition leader agrees on the direction. But there's a clear difference. The things that have been raised have plagued our farmers for decades. However, very little was done to address them. No, action is the hallmark of today. So, Mr. Opposition Leader, you keep talking. We will keep working. Madam Speaker, as I conclude, I am old enough to remember the 1990s and the early 2000s and the way things were. It was in 1995 that Jamaica joined the World Trade Organization and entered into the General Agreements on Trade and Tariffs, while other countries in the region like Barbados were negotiating to enter safeguard provisions to protect their agricultural sector. It is clear our government at the time was sleeping at the wheel and left our farmers in the cold. We now carry that burden. Madam Speaker, during the 1990s and the early 2000s, Jamaica saw the significant deterioration of our agricultural output. Traditional crops such as banana, sugarcane, citrus, cocoa saw tremendous declines. In fact, despite the best efforts of the dynamic and passionate Minister Roger Clark, who genuinely loved and respected the small farmer, the government of the day, the party that was in power, did not provide the needed resources to move agriculture forward. They talk a good talk. They criticize every move that is made. But when they get the opportunity to do something about it, they don't have the actions to back it up. Madam Speaker, a number of us in this house, we remember that period. It felt like hope was being removed from our island home. Many of us felt like life here would make no sense. A number of us got involved in politics to help and change that, to restore hope. What the farmers are getting now, Madam Speaker, is action, not talk, not politicking, action to restore hope so that we can harvest hope and mine possibilities. Hope that comes from storage facilities that are being built. Hope that comes from pipes that are being laid for irrigation. Hope that comes from the D-Link program. Hope that comes from Project Feed, with $390 million being provided to youth, women, and persons with disability. Hope that comes from the construction of a new fish hatchery. Hope that comes from a boat and engine program for youth. Hope that comes from our pipe water program in Buckside community. Hope that comes from the Buckside land lease program. Hope that comes from knowing we have a visionary leader in Andrew Michael Holness, who in thick and thin, he will be here with us in Jamaica. No parachute, not going anywhere. We will do everything, Madam Speaker and members, to remain on this trajectory. We have come too far. We are not turning back. We are moving forward ever, backward never. We are harvesting hope. We are mining possibilities. We are creating a better future for all.
Don't,
Well done.
Thank you. Well done, brother.
don't need the opposition spokesperson.
Madam
The job
Speaker,
is being done.
Madam Speaker, an excellent presentation by the Minister of Agriculture, Fisheries and Mining. So at this time, Madam Speaker, I now ask that the sectorial debate be suspended.
Those in favor? Those against, the ayes have it. House Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I now ask for a recommittal of items, statements by ministers, announcement, petitions, reports from committees, and notices of motions given orally. Copies are being made of the Prime Minister's statement. I have one copy here that I'll make available to the opposition until the others are done. Yes. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, House Leader. The question is that we now recommit statement by ministers, announcements, petitions, reports from committees, and notices of motions given orally. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. Statement by ministers. Honorable Prime Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The purpose of my statement today is to provide this Honourable House with an update on the progress of the Shared Prosperity through Accelerated Improvement to our Road Network, the SPARK program. Let me begin with a brief reminder of what the program is and what we intend to accomplish. The program allocates 40 billion Jamaican dollars over 2 years. The program aims to create a safe, reliable, and resilient road infrastructure that enhances mobility and connectivity, supports economic growth, and ultimately improves the quality of life. The program also forms the basis of a comprehensive road infrastructure management strategy, including the development of a comprehensive register of all roads in Jamaica and the alignment of the engineering lifetime schedules of these roads with budgetary allocations. Madam Speaker, the SPARK program, as I said, is allocated $40 billion. This is divided equally between main roads under the jurisdiction of the NWA and secondary and community roads that are under the jurisdiction of parish councils and or the NWA. These local roads or community roads, we generally term them as municipal corridors. Madam Speaker, the government intends to have this program implemented over a 2-year period. The works will include pavement resurfacing and rehabilitation, sidewalk rehabilitation, drainage improvements, water line improvements, retaining wall construction, intersection improvements at strategic locations, and for the main roads under the NWA, in addition to what I have just read out, the following will also be done: the installation of fiber optic ducts, the retaining wall construction on selected corridors, and the improvement of parking areas and bus stops along the corridor. Having regard to the quantum of expenditure on the secondary and community roads and the number of such roads and the state of disrepair of these roads, it is important to have the voice of citizens heard in the selection of the roads to be repaired under the municipal corridor component of the Spark program. The public must never feel that the roads that were selected were only on a political basis. Madam Speaker, the Spark program is a capital works program, and therefore the treatment of the road must meet the standard of capital works. So to be clear, we are not seeking to patch roads or even do small sections of rehabilitation. We are seeking, Madam Speaker, to have a full reinstatement, full redevelopment of our road network. I'm happy to announce, Madam Speaker, that we have commenced our community consultations to ensure the participation of the citizen in determining the roads to be targeted within constituencies. To date, we have had meetings in Kingston, St. Andrew, St. Catherine, Clarendon, and St. Elizabeth, totaling 9 constituencies. We expect to do at least 9 constituencies per week. We have now scheduled across constituencies 40 meetings for over the next month. These meetings, Madam Speaker, are being organized by and through the Secretariat of the CDF. As all members know, the CDF has a structure which is tried and proven and is quite suitable to assist in ensuring that there is maximum input of stakeholders. Based on the consultations held to date, approximately 70 roads have been identified and turned over to the NWA for scoping and pricing. The consultations have been well attended, with constituents providing valuable input on local and community road infrastructure to be rehabilitated. I have had one report, Madam Speaker, of a consultation where it did not go as we would have wanted it to. And I use the opportunity, Madam Speaker, to implore members that the consultation is a reflection of our management of the constituency. It is a reflection of our belief in the inclusive nature of our politics. It is a reflection on how well, Madam Speaker, we can arrange for public discourse with our citizens, to have them being able to express themselves without fear, to have them express themselves without threat of violence. And we have seen one consultation so far, Madam Speaker, where the attitude that was displayed would, in any forum, be considered below what is acceptable. Madam Speaker, we have received overwhelming feedback from residents, local businesses, and stakeholders who have expressed their appreciation for involving them in the decision-making process and addressing their concerns directly. Let me take a few minutes to again explain the allocation and the process for the municipal corridors within constituencies and how they will be addressed. The first allocation figure totals $10 billion. Of this, each constituency will be allocated equally approximately $150 million. As roadway lengths are verified, a further allocation will be made based on the ratio of the kilometers of roads in the constituency relative to the national figure. This will lead to a more equitable distribution across the island, taking into account consideration that some constituencies have more roads than others. So it's a two-tier distribution system. The first tier is for equality, and the second tier is for equity. And I believe that serves everyone well. So it means overall, constituencies with more roadway length, well, with greater length of roadways, will get a larger allocation. And I think that's only fair. The municipal corporations, through the local government ministry, are now mapping all their roads based on the existing road schedule, some of which are from the 60s. We would have estimates of the length of roads. They are currently, Madam Speaker, that is the Ministry of Local Government, actively mapping the roads by constituency and have currently mapped approximately 62% of the entire road network. This would include the NWA and parochial roads. Madam Speaker, the level of work required to create a meaningful register of our roads is far more involved than initially estimated. We are doing more than merely measuring the length and width of roads during the mapping process. We are conducting a ground truthing exercise utilizing the ArcGIS system, where we on-site verify and establish the length and width of the road infrastructure, including the road itself, the surface itself, sidewalks, drainage and culverts, and road furniture, guardrails, stoplights, signage, and the road condition, potholes, breakaways, cracks, and we are geolocating most of these features. So for the first time, Jamaica will have not just an up-to-date database of its roads, but we will have a real-time database, a real-time register of our roads. This will help us to develop the register into a powerful planning tool to be used to determine the estimated useful life remaining on a road, the repairs required, and any potential threat to the viability of the road. The intention of the administration is to put in place a long-term strategy to manage the maintenance of our roads. The local road component of the SPARK program will be designed to have an engineering lifespan depending on location, environmental conditions, and usage of between 7 to 15 years. For these park roads and all other roads to be repaired going forward, we will be able to align engineering data with financial allocations, ensuring that our roadways remain in a state of good repair. We will get to the point, Madam Speaker, where we can program our budget for road repairs years in advance based on the data we have on our roads. We can reliably plan a repair schedule in advance instead of budgeting after the road has failed. And then, Madam Speaker, we haggle as MPs over the small budgetary allocation. That, at that time, Madam Speaker, the pothole is already in the road, the breakaway has already happened. What we are doing now with the SPARK program and in truly creating a database with all the geographic, environmental, and usage information is that we will have all of this data to give us the engineering perspective of the road. meaning, Madam Speaker, we will know when the road is likely to fail, and therefore we are able to budget for this in advance, and in fact, budget to prevent the failure of the road. So we will now truly have the basis of a preventative maintenance program for our roads. So, Madam Speaker, the Spark program.
Prime Minister, I'm trying to find a space where it is convenient. Your time for speaking has expired. House Leader.
Madam Speaker, I ask for your permission to allow the Prime Minister to complete the presentation.
Question is that the Prime Minister be given 25 minutes to complete his presentation. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'll be half that time, or probably less. So, Madam Speaker, Jamaica will get to the point where we will be able to properly maintain our road infrastructure. Instead of doing maintenance after the fact, when a pothole occurs or the road surface fails or there is a breakaway somewhere or retaining wall collapses, with the engineering data that we will now have by virtue of this very comprehensive register of our roads, which is not just, as I've said, measuring the distance, but measuring the surface and quality and looking at all the other features that impact on the road, we will be able to now have a true preventative maintenance program. But the most important thing with that level of engineering data is that we would be able to properly budget. Right now, there is some relative information about our national budget for roads, but it is not always driven by data. Sometimes, Madam Speaker, it is driven by who has the greater political voice or who lobbies hardest for their roads to be repaired, which is what we all do as members of Parliament. In fact, that is a critical part of our role. That is how our constituents see us as being important or effective, how we are able to get roads repaired. But that is not a long-term solution for our road problems. The long-term solution, Madam Speaker, is to ensure that our economy does well so we have fiscal certainty. But we also need to have enough information and understanding of our road network so that we can have engineering certainty. And when you put the two things together, then it is the engineering data that should really guide your budgetary data and place you on a sustainable path to ensuring that your roads are properly maintained. And so we're using the Spark program as an opportunity to get those two things aligned, Madam Speaker. So, Madam Speaker, this takes me to the issue of the works and how the government intends to have these works executed. From this program, we expect to get the best outcomes, and we believe that we must widen the pool of available skills for implementation of the project. The procurement rules allow for different approaches to contracting works. So, Madam Speaker, as we seek to obtain the best available skills for effective management and implementation of these works, we are undertaking them using competitive bidding that is advertised internationally. And let me be clear, under international competitive bidding, our local contractors, local entities are encouraged and indeed expected to submit tenders either singly or in association with other local contractors, or if they choose, they can form consortium with local or other international companies. Madam Speaker, the pre-qualification documents would have been available for download as of Monday, April 22nd, and the tender period will now close on Friday, May 24th, 2024. The award will be done in 4 packages of approximate equal value, roughly between $7 and $8 billion per package. Package 1, Kingston, St. Andrew and St. Thomas. Package 2, St. Catherine and Clarendon. Package 3, Manchester, St. Elizabeth, Westmoreland, Hanover. And package 4, St. James, Trelawney, St. Anne, St. Mary, Portland. 10 construction companies, 6 local, 4 international, participated in the pre-bid meeting for pre-qualification. It is to be noted that since the pre-bid meeting was not compulsory, it is possible that additional companies will submit proposals by the closing date. Evaluation will be done by the 31st of May 2024 to select pre-qualified bidders based on established criteria, including capacity and work experience. Pre-qualified bidders will be invited to submit bid proposals by August 15, 2024. It is expected that evaluation and award of contract will be done by September 30th, 2024. The bid proposals will be informed by the main roads that have been selected by the NWA and the constituencies coming out of consultation. So let me walk through this, Madam Speaker, so that we all understand it. Once the 4 pre-qualified bidders have been selected, they then have to go out and scope the works so that they get a good understanding of what the cost, what they really are going to try and get is what a unit cost is for the repair of roads. So it is best that they have the actual roads that they are going to bid for. If the consultations are not completed, then what will happen is that they will be essentially examining an estimated set of roads that the NWA has already. But that estimated set might not be the exact set that you have selected. So I'm imploring members of Parliament to, as quickly as possible, cooperate with the CDF office to have your consultations so that the pool of roads that are going to be addressed is the pool of road that will inform the unit price for which the pre-qualified bidders will use to compete for the roads. So it is absolutely important that your role of getting the consultations in and getting the road selections in, that is done. Ideally, we would like to have all the roads selected by the end of June. So the 70 roads that have already been selected, they have been submitted to the NWA. Those are being costed, and those would be available for the 4 pre-qualified contractors to look at, do their own internal estimates, come up with their own price so that they can compete for them. But if it is just a general pool of estimated roads, then they might get figures that are not relevant to the actual roads that are selected. So again, I repeat, it is important that you take the consultation seriously and you get your consultations done as quickly as possible so that the program can remain on track. Madam Speaker, we are working assiduously to ensure the efficient implementation of these works. This Spark program will be a game changer for Jamaica's roads. It will be a driver of growth and development in many communities. And Madam Speaker, it will bring prosperity in a tangible way. Madam Speaker, this is just the beginning. as we continue to grow our economy and transform that growth into meaningful benefit for the people of Jamaica. May it please you, Madam Speaker.
Opposition Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, Prime Minister, for this update
Hold
on
on
the
a minute,
SPARK
Opposition Leader.
program.
Prime Minister, please turn your mics off.
Yes. Thank you for the update on the SPARK program, Prime Minister. I have two questions for you. First of all, I'm wondering, at the constituency level, when you're trying to identify the collection of roads in your constituency that you're going to put forward, without an idea of the costing of what it will take to fix those roads, how would you realistically, or even within a reasonable margin of error, choose a collection of roads or works that need to be done that has to fit within the funding envelope that's available? Or are you going to have a situation where the residents will expect, based on the consultation, that certain roads that were identified and discussed will be reached, but in fact, later on, when everything is costed, and of course you have the main contractors, you're going to have subcontractors that are taking margins out of that 150, how much, you may have disappointment where people don't actually get their roads fixed. So I'm wondering how you see that playing out. The other issue I wanted to ask you was in relation to local contractors and the level playing field, or the need for one. There's a sense out there that things will be stacked against them, that the requirements and so on are going to be so difficult to reach. They're designed in such a way that really international bidders are going to be the ones who are going to get these contracts. And of course, we know in the South Coast Highway project, we have a number of leading Jamaican contractors who have been saying they're owed a lot of money, they are facing arbitration clauses in the subcontracts, they have to arbitrate claims in Trinidad, and they can't bring them until the main contract is at an end, which is years down the line, so their cash flow is all severely impaired and it's causing them real financial distress. And none of those contractors would have been persons who would have expected to participate in this. But whether they'll be able to do so, given the financial issues that they're facing arising out of the South Coast project, is another matter. So I'm really sort of beseeching you on behalf of the local contractors to find ways for their inclusion, given the problems they're experiencing there and the level of requirements which there's a sense will be setting the bar so high, it may be as a practical matter or even intentionally make it difficult for anyone other than a very large international contractor to meet the relevant requirements. So those are the two issues I'd like you to address. The first being, how do we realistically manage the expectations of constituents around roads in deciding what the envelope is that is being put forward when we really have no idea of what it will cost to do those roads, and especially where there are going to be layers of persons making margins out of this, which will mean that the 150 will actually not really translate to 150 million worth of work because of the profit margins at the contractor and subcontractor levels. And secondly, what can the government do to level the playing field with this SPARK program so that local contractors have a fair chance at participating?
Thank you, Leader of the Opposition, for those questions. First, like with any construction project, the passage of time will create the opportunity for escalation in prices. We have to always bear that in mind. And therefore, the speed of implementation between the actual contract award and the execution is very important. In other words, I'm repeating my first point, that it is critical for us to get the roads selected early so that they form part of the pricing mechanism. That's very important. The longer we wait to get the road selected, you are likely to face higher prices as you go out further in time. Second point is that there is a notional standard cost per kilometer of road. we have not said what that is, but the NWA has a notional cost. And because of the contracting process, I don't want to say what that is either. But members of Parliament should bear in mind the total amount that is going to be allocated, which is in the region of about $300 million per constituency. The first 50 for equality, and then the second amount for equity, which may vary per constituency depending on the length of roads that you have. My advice, the first 150 is for equality. Everybody gets that. Sorry, forgive me if I said that. First 150 for everybody. First 150 for everybody for equality. and then the other amount for equity. Now, my suggestion would be that you target about 8 roads. And I think that would put you in the ballpark of the notional figure per kilometer. I would also say to you that based upon the list of treatments of the road which I have pointed out, which is the resurfacing, the culverts and drain, sidewalks, repair of critical intersections, that you should choose your roads carefully. If it is that the constituents are more interested, of course, in the miles of roads that are repaired, then you focus on surface. If there are issues to do with drainage and, pedestrian access, then maybe you have to focus on the other supporting infrastructure for the road. So it's really for the community, and you as the Member of Parliament would guide to say, if you take a road where you have to have several treatments of it, the price of that road, the cost of that road is going to increase, and it may eat away what is available for other roads. So it's a balancing act that everyone has to do.
So we make those choices.
You guide those conversations. You guide those conversations. You guide those. Because, and I feel, Leader of the Opposition, it is better that way, because if we were to sit down by ourselves and make the decisions, there would be many disgruntled and dissatisfied constituents who were not brought into the conversation, brought into the reality of how the trade-offs are made to get to the choices of roads that are eventually selected. So the consultation can be very beneficial to the Member of Parliament and to the general process of determining the road priority. As it relates to the contractors, the government has made the necessary provisions to facilitate, support, encourage our local contractors. The policy of the government is to see to the development of local contracting skills. It's almost a national imperative that this is the case. The challenges that we are facing with converting the capital budget each year, part of it is not just the public service bureaucracy not moving fast enough. Another part of it is the contractors that have to move more quickly in actually executing works. So the government is vested in ensuring that we have local contractors that can actually take on the capital works and execute them quickly. We recognize that there are some deficiencies, some challenges. And so what we have done is to tender internationally. We have seen that there is some interest. But what we would really want to see is a pairing of local and international so that there can be some transfer of skills. And it is always good to have infusion of capital and infusion of technology. And I think ultimately that is going to lead to Jamaica's contracting community growing and becoming stronger and being able themselves to be exposed to getting international contracts, which a few of our local contractors are being engaged in other jurisdictions. So I think we shouldn't be fearful of international contractors coming in, but the government is not trying to have exclusively international contractors do the work. What we want to see is them partnering, developing consortiums, and I believe that will lead to the strengthening of our local contractors. Having made the links internationally, eventually they too may be able to participate in works globally. And that's the intention. The other matters regarding the structure of the South Coast Road Improvement Project, that contract, there are some peculiarities there, which I don't want to go too much into it, Madam Speaker, but the peculiarities of that contract has to do, obviously, with the nature of the relationship with the main contractor and the requirements on their side as well. In these that we are going to be doing under the SPARK program, Madam Speaker, we will ensure that the terms are manageable, if not favorable, for local contractors or for any contractor who may decide to participate in the program.
Two additional questions. Member Paulwell was first, and then Member Robinson.
Just very quickly, 3 questions. Some years ago, there was an affirmative action policy that was approved. I remember that very clearly, for a certain percentage of work to be earmarked for local contractors. I'm not too sure where that policy is now, but I recall it was done under the procurement rules then. And perhaps we could be reminded of that policy. And the other 2 questions just relate to my experience with the 40 million project, which I can now say that we have completed that. And the first question has to do with the contractor. Will the contractors who are bidding go to physically look at the roads? All right, because that was not the case with the 40 million, because having bid, they implemented the project and couldn't do the work. And so you have learned from that. Right. Secondly then, in relation to, again, the 40 million, there was one contractor who allowed community people to assist with the sidewalk, not the road, but this is work that the community people could do, wet work. Created some employment, and it really assisted in relieving some of the pressures. And there's another consultant who was very strict and saying, no, this is my contract, and he's going to do everything. Yes, he did bid, and so as Member of Parliament allowed it. But it's just that we were able to achieve so much more when the community got involved. Is there going to be a scope for that?
Prime Minister, if you don't mind, allow member from St. Andrew.
But did 4, so I would just want to dispense with them very quickly, if it's okay, Madam Speaker. A member from East Kingston and Port Royal, I suspect you're saying that the procurement rules have gives local contractors a certain number of scores over and above foreign contractors in the assessment process. Not that they are given works, preferential access for works, no. But in the assessment on a bid, local contractors do get a certain percentage higher, start out with a certain percentage higher than a foreign bidder. So yes, there is some preference exercise for local contractors in the bidding process, but not necessarily in the allocation of works. I just wanted to make that clear. Under the $40 million program, the error, well, not the error, but the way in which it was executed was that each road was individually tendered. And that required an entire bureaucracy to support it. and each road had to go through the procurement process 63 times over.
Each road
separately, which elongated the process.
6 roads per constituency.
And that created a real problem. So some MPs still have not had their roads done, or not all. And the Spark program is not designed like that. So we have designed the Spark program where the roads will be all bidded on at once and determined by package. And so essentially you ask the question, the contractors had bid for the roads under the $40 million program, but never went to see the roads. They just used standard rates or rates that they were exposed to and send in a bid. And the bid is assessed and one is selected. In this one, sometimes, not always, but depends, the lowest one sometimes. Under this project, it would suit the potential pre-qualified contractors to have very accurate information about the quality and state of repair or disrepair rather of the roads that they are going to bid on. So, which is why we need to give them that baseline of roads by actually selecting the roads and putting it in front of them. And that will solve a lot of problems. It will give a greater degree of accuracy in the bid. Because, as you would know, having bid, some contractors bid very low and then are not able to complete, and then it causes all kinds of problems afterwards. In this process, because we are requiring that they actually go and inspect and come up with proper rates, we are fairly confident that we will have a better completion rate for the projects. We cannot enforce on the contractors after they have won their bids, but we will certainly give a policy direction that they should take an approach where the community, as far as possible, is included.
A member from St. Andrews Southeast.
Prime Minister, I am going to be very granular and specific, read a consultation. So I'm doing mine next Wednesday, and I want to be clear about what my role is and what the role of the citizens are. And I'm going to give you 2 examples. So in Vineyard Town, Deanery Road is the main road. Deanery Road needs drainage mainly because whenever it rains, it's like a river. But I have 20 other roads off Deanery Road, which are interior roads that people live on. So when I go to my consultation at Christ Church next Wednesday, and the residents of Vineyard Town all put up them hand and say, I want Fontenay and I want Grafton, etc., to be fixed, I want to be clear about whose decision it is to determine whether I fix all the roads off Deanery Road or I do Deanery Road, which involve drainage, which can be a whole heap of money. Whose decision that is. Similarly, in the Golden Triangle, Hopefield and Seymour are the 2 main roads. But Cleveland have a flooding problem. And when we had the last heavy rain, it flooded out some people. Now, who determines whether Cleveland get fixed so that the next time it rains, it don't flood out the people, which is a risk to life and property, or a fix Hopefield and Seymour where more people drive? I don't know who makes that decision. And I want to be clear with my residents that coming, because 10 of them might come from one area and all of them put up them hand and say, we vote for Hopefield. And then when them don't say Hopefield, them say, boy, why you invite me here for? It's a waste of time. Who makes that decision ultimately? Is it the Member of Parliament? Is it NWA? I don't know who. Now, you have said we should look at probably 8 roads in the envelope of the 150 million. Targeting 8 roads. Let me take the member from Central Kingston. We share Arnold Road. My part of Arnold Road need to fix, your part of Arnold Road need to fix. Tell me how we're going to deal with that part. Do we We go till my border, and then my allocation deal with my part, and then his allocation deals with his part. I don't know. I just need to be clear on that. But the most important thing, I want to manage the expectations because people come in, them already said them coming, them lining up, them want them road fixed, and I don't want people to view this consultation as just a talk shop for hear what them say, but at the end of the day, their input, well-meaning, but within the reality of what you have to deal with, just cannot be satisfied. So I want to know when everybody put up them hand, and I have 30 roads at the end of the day. Like I share Hope Road with Delroy, I share Old Hope Road with Fayetteville, all the main roads there, right? But all of us know in here, we don't get nothing out of fixing main road. No, we can just call it plain. We don't get nothing out of fixing main road. And the road, them are the people them live on them that want to fix. So who made that decision? Because I know what decision I go and make, you know. Because all of us here are looking to the next date, right? So let's be clear. Someone want to know who made that decision.
Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, I'm happy for the frankness of of the member from Southeast St. Andrew. But the member, in asking his question, immediately has given the answer. The issue that you face, like all of us face, is that we see the problem from one perspective. We have a particular view on the problem. The question is, why should our view prevail? And what is the process by which your view of the problem is tested, countered, and critiqued constructively by an alternative view? Now, that is what the consultation is about. And that's why, as the elected representative, the leader of the area, you would go with your frame. These are the roads that I have heard a lot of complaints about. Then you could move on to say, these are the roads that make strategic sense. They connect. If you get this road repaired, it will solve flooding problems onwards. The technical issues. And then you could also point out the demographic issues. Number of persons who live on this road. You could point out the traffic use on the road. And then you hear what your constituents who are there, what they have to say. Yes, the NWA can provide you with that information if you so choose, but the NWA will be there to answer those questions and to explain. The idea is that the citizen should have a voice, so they can say. And I suspect what will happen is that the different interests will be talking cross each other. Out of that, you will get a better sense as to whether the frame that you presented can be changed in any way, or the frame stands because it is a sound one. So ultimately, you submit the roads to the NWA. The consultation team that is there, they will note everything that is said because that is going to be very important as well. But ultimately, you would narrow down the listing and submit it. But I don't believe that people could say, well, this is a talk shop and it is not meaningful. I think it is always meaningful to have the citizens come and have their say. The truth is, however, let me be clear, the Spark program cannot fix every single road in Jamaica. This is really the first attempt of any government in the last 30 years, certainly, to have a meaningful impact on the road. It is a start. It is a start. And another important thing, it is not just the program and the selection of the roads, it is that it is being financed wholly and solely out of our budget. There is no borrowing for it. And we are going to make sure that we do it textbook style. Nobody can criticize the program about any form of corruption, any form of inefficiency, or any form of insularity where the people who are going to benefit have no say in how that benefit is delivered. This program will be a model, not just for Jamaica, but for the region as to how we go about rehabilitating our road network. Yes, that's a very, very good question, member. We have not yet put out the protocol. We're still examining it in terms of how bordering constituencies can collaborate on roads. My suggestion my suggestion is that if you have a main road, which is a critical thoroughfare, that you point this out to the NWA that you would like to have this road repaired if it comes up as part of your consultation. And the NWA will contact your adjoining member of parliament, or you could do it as well, and we could then work out a strategy as to how that can be done. Remember, we have given 2 levels of allocation. There is a third amount that is reserved. It's not a large amount, it's small. So we will use that to look at some, like cases where the allocation that is there is not sufficient to do the road, but the road is critically important to be done. So for example, a major breakaway or a collapse of a major part of the infrastructure of the road. So we will have a small reserve fund. So roads that are bordering roads, that are critical roads, we can have a conversation as to what part of your allocation, what part of the adjoining MP's allocation, and what the NWA allocation can do to have that repaired. So note it, contact the NWA, speak with your colleague, neighbor, and we will find a way to get it done. But it has to be a main road, a critical thoroughfare.
Member from St. Andrew West.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Prime Minister, I have a situation in Plantation Heights where a development has failed, and a road that is essentially a private road but is used as a thoroughfare for everyone, people going to Belvedere, upper reaches of Red Hills, use this road. And the question I want to know, and the people are asking me, is whether some of the spark, this is the one situation where we have an overarching pool of funds that can deal with a situation that they have to live with on a daily basis, for which KCMC said it's not their road, NAA says it's not their road, they've not been handed over. And we're in the situation where this road is deteriorating and causing serious problems for the residents in that area. Is it a situation where that those funds can intervene and help? And I'd like to hear your answer to that, Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, when we're contemplating this program, the issue of orphan roads, or roads that have been approved in developments but not taken over by the municipal authorities. We looked at it very carefully. We could not make a policy decision on it because the truth is, Madam Speaker, we simply did not know the magnitude of the challenge. We just didn't know how many miles of such roads there are. In this process of creating the national registry, we are going to be doing an inventory of our farm roads, which is not included in this program. and we're going to be doing an inventory of the scheme roads and orphan roads that have not been taken over by the municipal authorities. I'm reluctant to say to MPs, use the Spark program to do these roads, because there are some challenges. First of all, some of these roads, though they may be approved to be built, they are private roads. Government doesn't own them. They're still on private lands. So the process of them being taken over has to be, first of all, fulfilled before government can go and spend public resources on private roads. So that's number one. So we would need to have an understanding of what is the state of that road. Is it still private, or has it been turned over to a development, to a housing estate, to some entity where the responsibility for it can be shared? The second issue, some of these roads are not built to standard. So they may have been approved and they are to be built to a particular standard, but they are not built to that standard. And so if the government went in and took it over, the level of expenditure that the government would have to do would be significant. So I would say to the hundreds of thousands of Jamaicans who live in some housing schemes, who live in subdivisions that were approved and the roads have not been turned over, that the government is looking at the problem to come up with a solution. The Spark program may not be the solution right away. As soon as we have scoped the roads and we have a better sense of what it would cost, then I would be able to come back to Parliament and give a realistic answer about what kind of budgetary allocation would be necessary. I mean, you have raised one particular road. I know the member from Portland Eastern raised the road of the community of Norwich, Operation Pride scheme, where similar problems. It's a private development, the road has been done, but it's in a terrible state. I have, in my own constituency, I have several housing schemes, Bay Farm Villa, for example. Those roads were done in the early 70s and not done again, and they're in a terrible state. I'm sure the leader of the opposition may have. It's something that affects us all. The member from St. Mary Western mentioned it. The member from St. Mary Western mentioned some roads like that. What's the Emancipation Scheme? What was it? Industry Pen. There are many such members. So I'm very sympathetic to it. It is something that is on our radar. We're developing the policy around it, and I will come to Parliament shortly with a solution to it.
Thanks, Prime Minister. Announcements? Is it? No, this is the last question.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Prime Minister, can you say whether or not this allocation can be used with the municipal road along with the NWA road? I know it might sound NWA too. All right, just bear on with me, Speaker. In respect to Madam's Prime Minister, I'm asking you to do a proper comprehensive survey about the roads that you just speak about, these orphaned roads, because there is a lot. And I can tell you, you're going to be surprised to know how many, probably it supersedes what you have as registered roads. And I'm going to ask that you, in your deliberation, or you can just look at those roads for me, because I have a lot in my constituency, and I know they are going to come to the consultation believing that they are going to be part of this process.
Thanks, Member. Prime Minister?
It's important, Madam Speaker, that though a question wasn't asked, a statement
that
made,
you repeat.
But it's important that I respond. It's a very real issue for many Jamaicans. They bought into subdivisions, they bought into housing schemes, and they have the expectation that somehow these roads are public roads, not understanding that they are not public roads, they are private roads. But they have been used for years as public thoroughfares. People drive through the housing schemes, drive through the subdivisions. They have become part of, and people expect that the government will maintain them. Which is why, Madam Speaker, it was important for us to do the registry of roads, because the NWA has maintained a fairly good and up-to-date road registry. But the municipal authorities, some of the road registries that are kept, the last time they were updated would have been in the 60s and 70s, so they are outdated. So we are bringing those up to date. We are a fair distance with them, and as soon as we're finished those, then we're going to move on to the farm roads and then to these orphan roads. And once we have a good sense, as you have said, as your exact words, I would be surprised at the number and the extent of repairs. And I would say to you that I wouldn't be surprised. I'm quite well aware that it is significant. I just need to quantify the significance so that I could then have discussions with the Ministry of Finance regarding what possible budgetary allocations could be made specifically to address those roads, but not just budgetary allocations. What we have lacked as a government, and I'm speaking now across administration, because many years ago when I was on that side of the house, I brought a resolution for the government to take over these roads en bloc. Having a deeper look at the problem, there would be some legislative hurdles, particularly as it relates to the ownership of the roads, so we would have to pass laws to facilitate those being taken over. And let's be fair, not everyone wants their road to be taken over, so there would have to be a process by which this is done. The commitment I'm giving today is that the government has started to look at it, and we will develop a comprehensive policy that is funded that will bring a solution to the problem.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Member from Westmoreland Central, we took our last question. Member from Westmoreland Central, we took our last question. So no further questions. Since you're the only independent candidate, go ahead, member from Westmoreland Central.
Thank you very much, Madam. Prime Minister, Westmoreland, I think, have the most parish council roads. And as such, I want to say how much I appreciate that funding that you have allocated to the constituency.
Member from Westmoreland Central.
But Prime Minister,
member from Westmoreland Central.
There are some bridges, Prime Minister, there are some bridges that have been broken down for years. And I would love to request some funding for those bridges. Thank you.
I asked a question because I may not have been clear, but I'm of the view that all members understand that bridges are not a part of the Spark program. I just want it to be clear that bridges, the truth is, Madam Speaker, that to do one bridge would be the entirety of a road, or probably two. So we wouldn't be able to take on a bridge However, I do know that myself and the Minister of Finance are working on a particular program where it will be similar. I wouldn't say it's a Spark program in terms of the size of it, but the approach to it would be similar, that we would be looking at a substantial number of bridges across Jamaica that we would be doing. We should be able to say something about that I would say give us another 2 months. Another 2 months we will be able to make an announcement as to how we're going to treat with bridges in particular. But to be clear, bridges are not part of the Spark program. We have to deal with those separately.
Thanks, Mr. Prime Minister. Announcements.
Also laid on the table of the House are the following. Reports of the Regulations Committee of the House of Representatives on its deliberations on the National Housing Trust, Housing Benefits, Silversun Housing Development Order 2024. Minister Paper number 23 of 2024, entitled Instruments Adopted by the Annual Labour Conference of the International Labour Organization for the year 2023.